Hello, everybody. My name is Nick Johnson, and fun fact about me, I'm a technical student assistant at the Bailey Performance Center. And one thing I've noticed about Morgan Hall, um, or in Morgan Hall, you might too if you take a visit, is the permanent fixture that sits above our stage. That is known as our Decatry, and regardless of what set it is, what music you're going to see, you'll always find it up there. It's a super calming miking setup for all types of venues, optimal for low interference because it's suspended, but also can be highly versatile for just about any sort of room setup that you want. And generally, there's a lot about this, but I haven't had a lot of discussion about it. So today, I thought I would go and do my homework, and we could talk about things like the background of the Decatry, what it's good in application for, and how it is versatile. And lastly, just about future of miking techniques like this in general and mixing in general. So, with that being said, let's start with talking about just the term Decca itself is actually referring to the recording company. So, or the company that made them initially, Decca Records. So you don't gotta worry. That's not anything super specific, but um, the tree part is important, as whenever it was made in 1953 by um, Arthur Roy Wallace and Arthur Hattie. It was made in like this original T-shaped design where you had much the same effect as here, where it's the center, left, and right, facing about a meter away from each other. Um, it was said that it looked like a Christmas tree. Um, but this original design, I like what I have here, is an emphasis on a stereo depth. Not necessarily stereo itself, as a lot of recording at this point in time was still in mono or done through one out. Instead of a left and right audio, there was just audio. So, um, why was this important? Well, hi fi mono recording at the time was about just as high fidelity as me sitting here talking to you through this. Just putting an instrumentalist up to a microphone and blasting into it, more or less. This allowed for some diffusion of the sound, some encapsulation of the room, and became a pretty common miking technique for making a more convincing stereo fielded ish recording back during mono times. But through the integration of stereo recording, we saw that the design still kept up and even more so was implemented into live venues and further additions in recording studios. But we'll get to that in just a second. Um, it gives the stereo depth by using a minimum of three mics, a down center microphone, and two adjacent microphones facing outwards. I don't have any specific graphs for this. I really wish I did, but basically it captures an almost 180 or yeah, almost 360, 180 ish degree spectrum. I forget. But mostly encapsulates the audio in front of it. I guess 180 degrees. Um, and that's really good for um, recording large groups or recording in venues with like an open crowd facing towards the back of these microphone orientations. It wouldn't pick that up as much. And people have been endlessly changing uh, stuff to this design, and so I kind of want to get a little bit into the versatility of it because there is a lot as this technique, the Decatry, has become infamous in live venues and recording studios as or really just any sound space where you need to record the sound space and the multiple instruments playing within it. Um, Miking every instrument isn't practical for recording group sessions or live performances, and encapsulation of the group sound is far more effective from a listening standpoint, as you only have two ears. You know, you don't need to have all that information necessarily compiled or layered onto each other after the fact. It can just be from a group and still sound quite easy, quite nice. Furthermore, they can be used to, like in the capacity of this right here, where they are spreading out amongst the different sections of an ensemble or orchestra to capture different qualities at the same time, and creates an added layer of depth to the sound. Um, I was talking earlier about how these functions have, or like how people have changed the techniques alongside making deck of trees, and here's like a small instance of that. Let me find his name real quick before I say it. PS Audio's Paul McGowan describes in his article talking about deck of trees how he's found that there is an extra layer of stereo depth that can be added in whenever you take a deck of tree design and then make it further stereoized. I don't know how to say that, but by making another stereo adding technique where you cross two microphones together at a 45-degree angle to create a given extra bit of stereo depth. He called it the Blumen technique, which is in reference to the guy who made stereo sound originally. But yeah, ideas like this, it's a small one, but also this is the design of that. Or the graphic showing how laying out Blumen mics over a deck of tree enhances the polarity of it and leaves this just tiny slivers of dead areas. But yeah, it's really effective for all sorts of reasons, and can be coupled, or should be coupled, along with different miking techniques to record just room space while also giving direct sound for other things that are important going on in your music. Yeah. Or not lastly, but also lastly. In modern applications, we see softwares like Dolby Atmos or Sony 360 audio, something like that, which have been made to edit, edit and mix in stereo spaces to make more specific stereo sounding and immersive sounding audio. And this has typically been used for film applications, but has moved its way into music and music production. And also, this is done through a number of things. An instance of it leaking somewhat into the mainstream, having enhanced mixing ideas like this, which are more delicate and precise than what you could record, would be something like 8D audio, which was a wave of quadraphonic-ish experiences that you could have remixing modern songs that were just automated to loop around in like a left to right, up and down sort of rotation to where it sort of floats around your headspace. Dylan Tallchief in 2018 made a video on 8D audio, and I think it highlights novel mixing ideas and how they were becoming more prominent in music production centered communities. Fast forward to 2021, Zach Bressel made a great article highlighting how there was a Dolby Atmos mix of Blinding Lights by The Weeknd, and there's a lot in that article that talks about the shift in trying to pioneer what has just been simply stereo sound for the past 100 years. Or not 100 years, but like 50, 60 years. And it's an interesting time that we're in, where we have both the conventional and the non-conventional side of stereo sound. We're not necessarily seeing a new movement, but in kind of an analogous way to maybe how like VR is. We have created a sort of dual space to where like you can have this really immersive experience, but you can also have the commodified version of it, which is less artistically representative, but it's still music. It's still, you know, what you want. It's just, uh, even with all that being said, I don't think it necessarily, these are changes that are happening in music, but these are changes that aren't happening in isolation in music. And recording techniques will still play an important role in mixing and recording and just all sorts of stuff. Even though we have made a more abstract system where there isn't as much room space unless where it's needed, these are still very applicable things, and I think that they're useful and they're beneficial to get to know and love. Microphones are, in conclusion, microphones are a recording art and recording science. They are precise instruments that combine to enhance recordings in ways of both sonic difference, like texture, or stereoscopic difference, adding depth and volume into a recording. There's so many things that you can do to compound and make innovative sounds, and I don't think that we're stepping away from that with learning or with new applications. We're simply just finding a new layer to add on top of it. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you.